Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Queen Elizabeth II was a prominent person in her country and around the world. How did she do her job for so long? What schedule did she have? And it must have worked for her because her reign may never be equaled again. In her lifetime, she not only did royal tours, but worked for over 600 charities, military associations, professional bodies, and public service organizations, so her schedule was a packed one. Her sleep habits. According to glamour.co.uk, it said that in order to feel fresh for her daily appointments, the Queen always went to bed at the same time every night, 11 p.m., and she slept for 8.5 hours, meaning that she woke up around 7:30 a.m. each day, and she had the right idea, so you can't feel your best if you don't get enough sleep. The Queen also would read a little bit in bed before going to sleep, and she loved the outdoors. The Queen and Prince Philip loved walking outdoors. Queen Elizabeth rode a horse until she was in her 90s, and she was given her first horseback riding lesson when she was 3, and when she was 4, she got her first pony. Her and Prince Philip, they loved to dance, according to royal.uk. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh both loved Scottish country dancing, and each year during her stay at Balmoral Castle, Her Majesty hosted the annual dances known as Gillies balls, and for neighbors of the state and castle staff and members of the local community. So I bet that was fun. And then the schedule, Queen Elizabeth would get up at 8:30 a.m. and the bagpipes would play each morning at 9 a.m. So the Crown Chronicles stated that a piper played on the terrace beneath her apartment at Buckingham Palace. And Queen Elizabeth II usually took a bath before having breakfast alone, and it was usually cornflakes or special case cereal and a fresh or dried fruit. At Christmas, she would receive truffles as a gift, and the Queen would have scrambled eggs with smoked salmon and grating truffle on the top as a festive treat. Next, the Queen would take her time to read the daily newspapers to catch up with the latest goings-on in the world. She was the head of 16 governments and the leader of the Commonwealth of 53 nations, and so it was important for her to keep up with the latest news. So next, the Queen would deal with her fan mail, and she would receive like 300 letters a week, and she would randomly select 3 of them to reply to. And the ones she didn't have time to reply to were personally answered by a lady-in-waiting who was given instructions on how the replies were to be written. So that was very kind of her to do that. And according to the Crown Chronicles, once the letters were dealt with, it was time to open the contents of the famous Redboxes set up by Her Majesty's private secretaries. Those were full of important letters such as cabinet documents, telegrams, and state papers, which the Queen had to read, approve, and sign. And they were sent to the Queen each and every day, wherever she was. And then the only time she took off from her red box duties was on Christmas Day. So the Queen out and about. Well, the Queen started her day behind the desk, but she wasn't there all day. She was outside the palace too. The Queen would often spend her mornings out in the UK undertaking engagements, and normally these visits were on behalf of her patronages, and she was usually accompanied by her husband. The couple would visit venues across the country, and sometimes this took up to 3 visits before lunch. So once the morning is done around 11, the Queen would attend meetings, and the Queen dedicated one-on-one time with special guests such as overseas ambassadors, high commissioners, newly appointed British ambassadors, and senior members of the British and Commonwealth Armed Forces. Those would usually last no more than 20 minutes to ensure the relevant and important topics were discussed. And so it wouldn't eat up too much of her time because she was on a schedule. And then the Queen would take a well-deserved lunch at 1 p.m., and she didn't want carbohydrates, and she would eat something light like fish and vegetables. And when she wasn't in meetings, Queen Elizabeth would go to hand out prizes and awards to individuals who had won across a variety of disciplines. And these included the Queen's Medal for Nursing, the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service, the Commonwealth Book Prize, or the more formal investor ceremonies such as the OBEs, CBEs, MBEs, knighthoods, etc. So when the Queen had to leave town, she would use the royal helicopter, a royal train, or a RAF plane. In the last years of her life, if there needed to be a royal overnight visit, King Charles took over. The Queen also had to take care of administrative duties that dealt with her Balmoral and Sandringham estates, the Queen's private homes in Aberdeenshire and Norfolk, respectively. The Queen was so busy that family members had to make appointments in advance to see her. Taking a break at 4 p.m. for afternoon tea, the kitchens would send up Earl Grey tea, scones, and a few varieties of sandwich. These included smoked salmon, cucumber, ham and mustard, or egg mayonnaise. Her Majesty's favorites were jam sandwiches cut into rounds the size of an old penny. Chocolate biscuit cake made with McVitie's rich tea biscuits would often accompany the sweets and sandwiches, though it was said she only had a nibble of one or two items. The Queen had to be ready for the rest of her day. I'm feeling exhausted already. How did she do it for so long? So the Queen made time in the day to look after her dogs. The corgis were always with her, and by the end of her life she only had two, and they were a mixture of a dachshund and corgi. And when she was visiting the countryside, she walked with her Labrador retrievers. And the Queen loved horses and owned a few racehorses, and she kept up to date with the progress of training of her horses and the breeding of them. On the weekends, Queen Elizabeth would ride horses at the Windsor Great Park. That was a great way for the Queen to get rid of any stress she might be having. And so then once a week, the Queen would have a meeting with the Prime Minister. It would usually take place at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. No notes were taken, and the conversation was to be kept to themselves, and no one else would know. And the Queen would end her day with a gin and Dubonnet each evening. At 7:30, the Queen would take the time to read the report of the day's parliamentary proceedings, written by one of the government whips. And then dinner was always from the royal stocks, including game or fish from Sandringham, or venison and salmon from Balmoral. Once again, she would usually eat on her own, unless there was a dinner or a banquet she was attending, and she prefers a carb-free dinner. Around 9 o'clock is when receptions would sometimes be held, official receptions along with the members of the royal family at Buckingham Palace, and the receptions were often in the aid of the work of a particular group of the community. Well, the Queen did have some downtime, thank goodness, and it was then that she would watch TV. She loved Downton Abbey, and she enjoyed X Factor, EastEnders, and Coronation Street, and they were favorites with a number of the royals. Also, Dad's Army and Last of the Summer Wine. And by the end of the night, she would sometimes be the last to go to sleep, wanting to look at her Redboxes some more. So the Queen had a dedication to her job and duties. She never tired of her responsibilities, and is surely an inspiration to almost everyone, because she stepped into her role because of her father's sudden death and never tried to get out of it. She looked to her past relatives, her father, her grandfather, her great-grandmother, and saw what wonderful jobs they had done as heads of the country, and she learned the roadmap of how to do it well. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. And also, if you hadn't hit the notification bell, if you could do that, you'll be notified whenever a new video is ready to be viewed. So I hope everybody's been having a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.